Renae, thank you so much for being here today. How are you?
Oh, I'm so good. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Absolutely. We're going to talk all about business today and we're going to crush hustle
Mhm.
culture and we're going to feel so good at the end of our talk today. But before we get started in business, let's get to know you a little bit first. Can
Yeah.
you share with us where are you from? What do you love to do outside of work?
Yeah. Well, I am in San Diego, which is amazing. It's actually really cold and chilly today, but normally it's really warm and sunny, which I love.
Yeah.
I have 3 kids and I work part-time actually as a neonatal therapist. So I spend some of my time snuggling and feeding and holding babies. So, yeah,
Oh,
it's
that's
a
amazing. That's awesome. And I
snapshot.
love San Diego too. That is one of my favorite places to visit. Absolutely. Just to be outside and all
Mhm.
the different things you can do there. It's amazing. Have you been there long term or have you moved there recently?
We moved down here. So when I was in grad school, we
Hmm.
wanted to kind of move down here. So I requested my like internship placements to be placed down here. So that's what brought us down here. So we've been
So cool.
here, I would say like 13 years. So it feels
Wow.
like long term now. I think we're
Yeah.
we're settled. We're not going anywhere. Like this is home, all of those pieces, but
Yes.
not native here, but now we're
Yeah.
committed.
Yeah. 13 years starts to feel like you're just from there for sure.
Yeah.
Okay. You coach women to scale beyond six figures without the hustle, which is my favorite
Mhm.
thing, which is why we align so well. But you do this with this really unique perspective of the cycle advantage, how to plan your
Mhm.
business around your cycle. How did you get into coaching in this realm?
Yeah. So, well, I about 6 years ago, I was pregnant with my third baby, and my husband fell at work. He was playing basketball, and he fell at work.
Mhm.
And he called me later, and being in the medical field, he's like, "Hey, my head still hurts. Like I hit my head really hard. Like I think I need to go in and have it checked out." And I was like, 100%. Like go to the ER,
Mhm.
get a CT, like get it just checked out. And when he got there, they were like, "No, you're fine. Like, you don't have concussion symptoms. Like, you're fine." And I was like, "No, just ask them for a scan. Like, please just say, I'm here. Give me the scan." And
Mhm.
he called me probably about 30 minutes, an hour later, and was like, "Hey, the doctors just came in. They didn't find a bleed. Everything's fine, but they did find a tumor." And so that started this whole whirlwind of going through brain tumors and surgeries and seizures and all the things that kind of encompassed that next year for us, and really brought me and our whole family to a place of like the hardest year of our life. Like my husband couldn't
Yeah.
drive. I was driving him back and forth to work. I was driving myself back and forth to work. I was driving the kids to preschool. I was managing everything, and it really
Yeah.
brought me to this place of wondering, like, is this what life is going to be like? Like, is this the rest of my life? I'm just going to go back and forth to work every day. He's going to go back and forth to work every day. And we aren't guaranteed tomorrow. Not one of us, like, know what's going to happen tomorrow. Like it was so sudden, this like tumor out of nowhere, unexpected. And so you don't know what tomorrow's going to bring. And so it really
Yeah.
became this place of, I want to create my own dream. Like, I want to create my reality today in this life that I really love and how I want to live. And so, what does that look
Mhm.
like? And I dove into network marketing, right? This promise of
Mhm.
success and freedom and time freedom. And I had like 3 young kids at home. I'm like, I want to be home with them. I don't want to be at work and all of these
Yep.
things, and would find myself like pumping at the same time. I would like pump on my lunch break and then be messaging and texting and like trying to build my business at the same time. And like all these things,
Mhm.
like squeezing business into the small cracks of my hours. And my coach kept saying, like, just keep going, keep going. It's like consistency, it's consistency. And it got to the point where I was like, I'm not seeing the results. Like, I'm not seeing the success that I was promised.
Yeah.
And 2-3 years in, I'm still not making any money. So, like, what am I
Yep.
doing here? Like, this is not working. And when I reach out to them, they're like, "Oh, it's a numbers game. It's all just about, you just have to do more. Like, if it's not getting the results and the
Mm-mm.
success you want, like, you've just got to do more." And I'm like, I'm bleeding at my knuckles right now. There's
Yeah.
nothing left in me to give more. And the whole reason I did this was to have time freedom and to be able to have like
Yes.
freedom for my family. And now I'm like creating a whole nother job on top of mom life and on top of my work life. And like, it's now taking the very thing that I was desiring in the first place. So that set me out on this own journey of trying to figure out like, how do I create that business? How do I create that for me that actually gives me what I want? And that's when I stumbled upon the cross that women are not designed like men, and that we are not designed to operate in this 24-hour consistency sort of method, that women have
Mhm.
a 28-day rhythm, and that the way our hormones change throughout that 28 days really impacts the level of focus that we have. It impacts the level of creativity that we have, our motivation, our momentum. Like literally every part of us is impacted by our hormones throughout the month, and started leaning into that and found one, like the first thing is like it gave me so much permission to just do things my own way and have days where I don't feel like getting out of bed. And I don't, all right, no, I mean, not that I don't get out of bed, but like, you have those days you're like,
Right. Yep.
momentum's just not there. And then
Yeah.
other days you're crushing it, and that's
Yep.
completely normal. So I started like, one, just giving myself the permission, and then started leaning into actually leveraging it, like knowing when I was going to be where, and then structuring my time to feel so that I was aligning with that. And it really became this game changer in just giving me so much more freedom and being able to get
Mhm.
more done with less effort. And then now, fast forward, like, once I started sharing that in my spaces and my communities that I was working with at the time, they're like, oh my gosh, this is like mind blowing. How are we like
Yeah.
35 years old? I'm like, on average, I find that women are about 35 years old when they find out about it. And it's like, how are we this? Like getting to the 30s, 40s, 50s before we find out about it. And it makes such a huge difference. And so that's when I transitioned into really helping women entrepreneurs like do that. Like, how do you create the freedom and build your business and still have time for your kids? Like, I work with ambitious women that like want to do all the things, right? Like, they just want to do it in a way that
Mhm.
doesn't burn them out. And this is really helping them find that way to do that. Yeah.
Wow, you're right. And that story of working with setting up that network marketing business and working in all the different hours wherever you have a spot and someone telling you just work harder,
Mm-hmm.
that fires me up so much because that is exactly what we're doing here is we are changing that narrative that we don't
Yeah.
have to just work harder. We are already working hard, and that puts so much pressure on a person and makes them feel like they're not doing good enough and they're not enough. And ultimately, it's actually just working smarter. It's working
Mm-hmm.
with your body. It's allowing yourself breaks. And I am so excited to learn more about this from you.
Yeah.
The hustle culture is so prevalent right now, and it's so easy to fall into too, even with all these years of practicing this new way of doing business myself. I know sometimes when it gets near launch or something, I can start to feel the old me be like, okay, maybe we're just going to hustle, we're going to push harder, and I have to remind myself, no, we're actually going to go to bed and it's going to be fine. You're
Yeah.
like, you don't have to work 24/7. Why do you think that we should no longer hustle to grow our business? Why do you feel like this is so important?
Well, here I feel like there's this element of like, there's a time for us to hustle and there's a time
Yeah.
for us to rest, right? And I think that that's the
Mhm.
beautiful thing. Like, when we start to look at our menstrual cycles and how our menstrual cycles really set us up for being able to push hard and achieve big things, but also
Mhm.
gaining the balance of rest. So I hustle in my business, I push hard, and I do big
Mhm.
things, but it's got this dichotomy of I know when I need to pull back and when I need to rest. And it's not me
Mhm.
having to make those decisions, it's my body just following the rhythm. And so it's like
Yeah.
knowing that you can push and you can go hard, right? Like, I am ambitious. The people I work with are super
Mhm.
ambitious. Sometimes it feels really good to hustle and it feels
Yeah.
really good to go hard, but it doesn't feel that good all the time, and it doesn't feel that good for an extended period of time. And so
Yeah.
it's knowing that. It's like we can hustle, but it's not the constant hustle. It's not the going
Right.
hard all the time. And so I think that for me, it was really this wrestle of before I knew it, like, right, people tell you, you practice self-care and you take time off and you take these rests. But when you've got a massive list of goals and or massive deadlines and you've got all these big things that you want to get do and the to-do list never stops, right? Like the reality is it never stops. So when we have that,
Mhm.
this is our reality over here of like big goals, massive action, to-do list never ending, you have a team, whatever it is, to take time off or to stop or to practice self-care can be feel really guilty or very heavy and very hard, and it's like it takes a lot of willpower and strength. But when you lean into your cycle and your normal rhythms, it's not something that you have to consciously do anymore. There's no like I'm feeling like I need to slow down, like this guilty piece. It's just like this is how it is, and I know in like 2 weeks I'm going to come back
Mhm.
and I'm going to be great. And so I think that's the biggest shift and the biggest difference is you can hustle and you can push hard. It's
Mhm.
knowing when your body is aligned for that and when it's not, and when your body needs something different, and that's okay. That's normal.
Yeah.
It's a part of the process. So I think that is the number one thing I see so many of my clients and even just people that I engage with like on social media and stuff, like the biggest number one thing that they always like, they're like the permission, right? The permission.
Yeah.
And that first week when my clients come on, they're like, oh my gosh, my whole life has changed already, like instantaneously, just by giving you the permission to know, like, your body has this rhythm and where to hustle is contingent on that, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. I love that. That makes sense. And you're able to have both. Like
Mhm.
you're right. We have these I have weeks where I'm so creative and I'm just in the zone. I want to work all the things and I know next week I'm probably just not going to want to be on social media and just want to be in my bed, and that's okay cuz next week
Yeah.
I'm going to feel fine again. And just honoring our bodies like that. So, do you when you're working with clients in this way, do you help them plan their work around their cycle, or do you plan the work and then adjust as the cycle changes?
So typically we have the same four phases. There's always a
Mhm.
little bit of variation, and I love like diving into, and life, like our bodies actually, so okay, like backtrack, like if you have an irregular cycle or if your cycle's not
Mhm.
normal or something of that nature, like I get it and it's still applicable to you. Like 100% believe
Mhm.
all women are made to live into this cyclical nature, regardless if the hormones are the drivers or not. Like there's other pieces and other facets. We can get into a whole conversation on that. But
Mhm.
really, like, so the way our life is living and like how we're living is impacting our cycle and how our cycle shows up and that rhythm that it
Hmm.
has, and vice versa. Our cycle is impacting the way we show up. So it's this symbiotic relationship that, like, you really, when working with a client, I'm like digging in to figure out, like, why is your cycle irregular and can we fix that? And then when we know what your cycle is doing, like, how do we lean into that? So it is about like the four phases. The biological ones are like menstrual, follicular, ovulation, and luteal phases. Those are the different phases of how estrogen and progesterone are playing out in your body. So estrogen is that like fire, momentum, let's get stuff done. We're thinking really sharp. Your brain feels really clear. You might feel focused. You might feel ready. And then progesterone is like, you know what? I don't really want to be around people. I kind of want to pull back. You might still be productive, but it's like, I want to do things on my own. I don't want to talk to people. I
Mhm.
want to be in my own little world, and can be full of self doubt and fear and worry and all those types of things. So, whereas like you might, in that estrogen phase feel like I am going to crush this big thing. I'm going to take on these big goals. I'm going to do these big things. And then that luteal phase comes in and progesterone takes over and you're like, I want to burn it all down. I suck. I can't do this. Like the world is falling apart, right? And
Yeah.
so it is about really helping women use and know what those phases are. So I renamed them in terms of like how they really function with productivity and business. So we have the recharge phase, which is that's what it's all about. Like that's your menstrual phase. Like it is about recharging and making sure that your cup is full and that you have your battery fully charged. It's like a Tesla. Like I live in Southern California. There are Teslas
Yep.
everywhere. And if you don't charge a Tesla, it's not going to go anywhere, right? But if a Tesla
Right.
is charged, it'll go like 0 to 60 in a matter of seconds. Like it is incredibly fast. but it has to have a charged battery. And so you are the same. That recharge phase comes right before that acceleration phase, which I call it the accelerate phase, because that's what it
Mhm.
feels like. You're like, hit the ground, like, let's go, let's accelerate, like, let's get these big things going. And so you need that recharge right before that. And then
Mhm.
once you've accelerated, you reach your peak around ovulation, your body is like physiologically trying to attract a mate. You know, you're like a
Mhm.
in the mating world or like the animal kingdom world, you know, you're like
Right.
fluffing your feathers. So it's like a really great time for social media and podcasting and interviews and photo shoots and buying new clothes, getting your hair done, like all those types of things, because you are the most radiant. You are the most
Mm.
magnificent, like, and magnetic, right? Like you're going to pull people in. And then you go into that more progesterone dominant phase, and your body starts to like say, I don't want to be there. I don't want to get dressed today. I want to stay in my pajamas. I'm going to work in my pajamas. I don't want to be on social media. I just want to be behind the scenes, and like I want to be writing all this juicy content, because it is your like
Mhm.
juiciest content writing phase. But you have those different elements as you move through the month. And so with my clients, we like take those phases and we say, where is your cycle at? How can we lean into these and schedule around them? And instead of using strategies like time blocking or color coding your calendars and like all those types of things, which help women feel really blocked in, and you show up
Mhm.
and you're like, this is the time block. I'm supposed to be doing my podcast, but like, God forbid, I actually have to get on and talk to somebody. Like, I don't want to do it. It's looking at like, okay, this is maybe a time block that we put in here, but we're going to strategically place it in that phase when you're going to feel the best and you're going to feel ready to get on camera and you're going to feel ready to dive in and you're going to communicate the most effectively, so that you know where those places are, instead of just showing up and being like, oh, I have to force myself to do this. So it's really leveraging those rhythms, knowing how those rhythms show up, and then scheduling so that you do get things done faster and it does feel
Yeah.
easier and it feels more aligned. And, you know, like you've probably had those times where you show up on a podcast or you do it, social media, and you record the social media like 15 times and you just like, I hate it. I can't get it
Yep.
right. Or you get on a podcast and you're like, damn, I was good. I was on
Yeah.
fire. And those other ones where you're like, oh my gosh, I wish I could just redo that. Those are those
Yes.
feelings. And it's
Yeah.
not always just that we're having good days and bad days. It literally is hormonal at our core level. And when we know what those are, then we can avoid not all of them, but we avoid
Yeah.
more of them. Yeah.
Wow. You just when you went through the phases and how you've
Hmm.
named them, I can relate to everything that you said under each of those categories. It's like you just described my last month. So
Yeah.
it totally makes sense. And it's so powerful to have that tool when you're planning. And I always say with clients when we're planning their 90 days that this is an ideal calendar, but we don't live in an ideal
Hmm.
world and we have to be able to flow with it. And this is such an awesome piece to be able to put on
Hmm.
that plan as well as, and again, just working with our bodies instead of against it. This is
Yeah.
so helpful. I'm excited to learn more from you. And where can people find you if they want to hear more?
Yeah. So I have my podcast, which is The Cycle Advantage. You can find that. I love hanging out on Instagram. It's one of my favorite places. I've like gone back and forth on TikTok. Like for a while, I was like, I love it. It's my favorite place to be. And then I don't know. Like, so anyway, but those are my two places that would be the best places. And I have a cycle tracker. If you go over to the website, I have a cycle tracker there you can download and just start tracking your cycle, because I find that that's one of the number one things is like most women aren't even paying attention to their menstrual cycle, right?
Mhm.
Like it's seen as this negative, shameful thing, like hush, hush, we don't talk about it, which is partly why we're 30, 40, 50 years old before we even hear about it. It's this
Mhm.
such a heavy laden thing, when in reality, our cycle is our superpower. And I find so many women are able to achieve more and do more and feel more in flow. They feel more balanced. They feel so much more powerful and less guilty when they use it. They just haven't been taught it. So, but tracking it is the number one step. So I would definitely make sure that you are tracking it and digging into it, so that you then can start noticing those patterns to be able to leverage them
Mhm.
and really utilize them.
Oh, that's awesome. I will
Yeah.
definitely be grabbing that, and we'll make sure that we have all those links in the show notes for everybody listening. And before we let you go, I'd love to get to know you just a little bit better too. So tell
Yeah.
us, if you're a Starbucks girl, what is your favorite Starbucks drink?
Ooh, I will admit I don't go to Starbucks anymore.
Yeah.
um, so I recently, I've learned a lot about like hormones and different things like that, just obviously,
Yeah.
and have been trying to take myself away from the coffee and doing things that are a little bit more healthy. So lately, I've been making my own like matcha tea latte, which I'm
Hmm.
really loving. So that is what I make at home. I just find the Starbucks drinks are like way too sweet. They're just way too much for me. So I tend to make them all at home.
I've heard a lot of people bringing up the matcha tea lately. This is something I
Yeah.
need to try. It sounds really good. How about for self-care? What's your go-to for self-care?
Mm. I love a lot of different things. And I think self care varies. And it does vary based on
Mhm.
where you're at in your cycle and what feels
Oh,
things
cool.
feel good and what things don't, and how to adjust your self care based around that. I
Yeah.
find that I really, really thrive on like heavy, hardcore workouts in that accelerate and connect phases. And I love that. It makes me feel so rejuvenated. It makes me feel so refreshed. In that reflect and recharge phases, I tend to do a lot more outdoors and spend more time outside. And those are kind of how I structure a big piece of my self care based around those phases.
Mhm. Oh, I
Mm-hmm.
love that. Self-care even mapped out by your phases. That's amazing. That totally makes sense.
Everything,
Absolutely.
everything in your
Yeah.
life, like sleep, food, self-care, like literally everything in your life changes based around your
Yes.
cycle.
Absolutely. That
Yeah.
totally makes sense. I love that. You are blowing my mind today. It's so good. I'm learning so much. Okay, how about when on those days when you're just not feeling it, how do you create motivation or momentum?
Ooh, very good question. So I always tell my clients like the number one thing you need to be asking yourself every single day is what does my body need today?
Mhm.
And when you approach it from that place, it goes into being able to actually listen to your body and not necessarily even me. Like don't necessarily just listen to me. Like the biggest thing that I can help my clients do is help them tap into listening to themselves, and so really listen to what your body is asking you and needing you to like to do. And so if you get into the habit of listening to that, and you look at it like nowhere in society are you being really taught to listen to your body. You're being taught
Right.
to like eat a certain way, sleep a certain way, exercise a certain way, like build your business a certain way. Like everybody is an expert telling you something and how to do it, but nobody is saying, hey, listen, you are the expert. Like listen to
Mhm.
your body. And so that would be the number one thing that I would start. And then inside my program, I teach my clients what I call activators, mind body activators. And they're things that we can do, like your body and your brain are so integrally connected. And so there are sensory things that we can do to our bodies that will help increase that energy. Things as simple as like taking a shower. Like, oh my gosh, like a
Mhm.
shower in the morning can do wonders for that energy level for you that you might not even notice. So if I know like I'm going to be on a calls all day long, or I'm feeling, I will for sure make sure I've done like a good workout and a shower in the morning,
Mhm.
because that is going to boost my energy. Versus if I come and sit at the table or like at my desk and I'm like in my pajamas and I had like a slow morning, like naturally that's going to help decrease my energy, right? So it's
Yeah.
being very strategic with what are you doing to help support your body and what are you doing to help support your body's energy, and
Mm.
tapping into that, making sure it matches up with your cycle so that you do have the energy for the things that you need, because not everything's going to match. Like there's going to be some days where
Mhm.
you're like, I'm in my accelerate phase, but I'm not feeling it. And like, why am I not feeling it? And it really is about helping increase that for them.
Yeah. Oh, that's so good. So
Yeah.
good. So many great nuggets today of
Yeah.
wisdom. Thank you for being here. We really appreciate it. And we'll talk with you soon.
Thank you.